Hello, I'm Paddy from creativemedia.org.uk, and today I'm going to show you how to make scruff puff pastry. Now, puff pastry is famously a bit difficult. It takes quite a while. I think there's lots of chilling and just lots of time involved. Rough puff pastry was invented to make it easy, but I think rough puff pastry is still a lot of effort. It seems to involve grating butter and freezing the butter in the first place, and still chilling and lots of complicated stuff. This is a lot quicker, and it's vegan as well. Now what I'm going to show you is a technique rather than a specific recipe. I'm not going to give you the quantities of anything because I don't really know how much I'm putting in, but I'm using some strong white flour. Probably other kinds of flour would work, but strong white works for me, and I'm just shoving a bunch of it in there. I'm going to make hopefully a kind of puff pastry Wellington, vegetarian Wellington, with a puffy top. So I've got strong white flour, I've got vegetarian suet, this stuff's Atora, they do meat suet as well, this is vegetarian. I'm not putting this in the bowl, oh no, that comes later. I've got some water, I've got a bit of vegetable oil, this is rapeseed oil, so I'll just tip that in as well. I'm not tipping all of it in, again I'm just tipping in some. There's probably quite a lot of leeway. I've got a rolling pin, I'll need that later. And I've got some water. I'm not going to use all of that, I'm just going to get a sense of when the texture is right. So I'm going to put in a tiny bit, and do a bit of mixing. It's starting to clump together, but it's not clumpy enough. I want an actual dough, put in a little bit more, tiny bit each time. That might have been a bit much. Getting bigger clumps now, but it's still not ready yet. You can put extra salt in, or extra sugar in if you want a sweet or a salty pastry. I'm just going to leave it as is. Maybe a tiny bit more. You want to get this right now, really, because it's hard if it's not wet enough. You will find it's a pain to deal with later once you're rolling. That's feeling good. That's really sticking together now into a kind of lump. So I'm going to flour the surface a wee bit so I can roll out. I've actually got a kitchen floor tile here, which I got from somewhere, which is really good as a kind of like work surface. Some people recommend rolling out on marble or something like that, but I think this is like a equivalent almost. So I just put this on my work surface and use it to cook on. Just going to squish this together a little bit into a lump. Okay, that's in a nice lump, and I'll tip out the extra bits on here and they'll all end up in the dough in the end. Get a bit of flour on the rolling pin. Don't want to waste any of my dough. Right, and let's start rolling. I don't need to really worry about rolling into a circle or anything fancy at the moment. I just need a long piece of dough, quite thin. How is that? That's going well. Okay, and now here is the secret. I'm going to sprinkle my suet on top of my pastry. Don't need to have it really thick. I'll be doing this a few times. And now, instead of that kind of folding in thirds thing, which they do with puff pastry and rough puff pastry, I'm just going to roll it up. Because I figure that's going to give me a lot more layers. And I want to seal the ends a little bit so it doesn't get out. And then, just like with puff pastry, I'm going to roll that out again. Ooh, it's even longer that time. And yeah, you guessed it, I'm going to sprinkle more of this suet along. So this is the equivalent of the grated butter. I figure this is already in little bits, and it should do the same thing as the butter does, or something quite similar. Right, I'm going to roll this up again. I reckon doing this 3 or 4 times, they're kind of rolling out and rolling up. And then you should end up with a lot of layers in your pastry. It'll get quite hard to roll out by this stage. Yeah, this is going to be my 3rd layer of suet in there. Another roll up. This could be my last layer. I've not really rolled it out very far this time, but okay, so now I am going to... Whoa! That's rather a good effect. Now I'm going to roll this out into a circle if I can. It's not really starting very circular. Useful tip I noticed on a TV programme, cooking programme, for when rolling out stuff circular, is you don't roll right to the edges. You just roll the kind of middle bit and then rotate the pastry, and then you'll actually find it's getting reasonably round. Reasonably square. It's more square than round, but still. It's kind of looking a bit roundish. So here is my SCRUFF PUFF pastry. Just showing you a small bit of pastry. but you can definitely see what they call lamination in there, lots of layers. It's not as good as proper puff pastry, or probably even rough puff, but it's pretty good considering how little effort it is.